much for being here. I am so grateful for each and every one of you for tuning in. Let me start by saying that this is a lecture topic that I've been wanting to talk about and present for several years, but I've never really had the right platform or opportunity to do so. It is easily the topic that I get asked about the most, with people asking me all about things like chronic and acute injuries, low back pain, elbow pain, or postural things like these rounded shoulders or anterior pelvic tilt. I mean, like, who here has had anything like that ever cross their minds as something they wanted to address, but weren't really sure where to start? And I know for many of us, unfortunately, many of us do live in this constant chronic state of pain, where in some cases, it's something that we feel like we just have to deal with in everyday life. Sometimes it's the direct result of some kind of movement or injury, but oftentimes it can be hard to pinpoint and know exactly what to do about it. So today, I hope to shed some light on all of these issues for you. So over the next, say, 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to teach you the fundamentals to understanding 3 core topics. So we're going to be looking at muscular imbalances and understand why they exist and what to do about them. I'll also be covering off a little bit about posture. And finally, we're going to take a very deep dive into understanding pain, which, in my opinion, is the most misunderstood topic in the health and fitness space, and one that we can all benefit from getting more perspective on. Because, I mean, how many of us are in pain or have experienced pain in the past? I guarantee you we all fall into that category. If not, you're probably just like not human or something. So of course, at the end of this presentation, I'll be sharing with you the 4 key steps to managing and hopefully overcoming pain using everything I teach you guys in this session. And I'll be opening up the floor to answering any of your specific questions. So if throughout this presentation you have any questions on anything that I mention, feel free to pop it into the comments section right there into the app, because I'll be going through it all at the end. And of course, feel free to make use of this comment section here at any point in time, even if you don't have a question. If you just want to like drop me an emoji, highlight like a cool, that was an interesting point, or just say hello, that's what this guy's here for as well. Now, a lot of what I teach and share comes from the observations that I make in my own training, from working with clients as a trainer and in everyday life. And it's somewhat backwards to what the traditional educational system promotes, where you're meant to go to school to learn about a subject like exercise science or physiology or biomechanics, and then you go out into the real world and apply these theoretical concepts to patients and clients who come to see you. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily correct or if there even is a correct or incorrect method out there, but I make observations, and then it's my curiosity and desire to understand these observations and to find an answer to a problem that pushes me to study and learn about the fascinating organism that is the human body. So several years ago, do we have 300 fucking people in here right now? Are you fucking kidding me, mates? Cav, where'd you go, Cav? We got 300 people and Cav is fucking like, he's just filming the wall right now. Holy shit. Oh. Anyway, back on track. So, so several years ago, I made this pretty interesting observation while I was at the airport that led me to where we're currently at right now in this live stream lecture. So I was at the airport waiting for my flight to wherever it was that I was going on my workshop tour, and I was heavily engrossed in some video editing I'm pretty sure it was video editing. Anyway, about like 5 minutes into this, I wound up incredibly bored and got distracted by a couple of kids running around the terminal lounge. They would have been like, I don't know, maybe about yay-ish high, which I'm estimating to be like about 8 or 9 years old. So they're running about, causing a ruckus, and their mother is off on the side, sitting down, acting as if like these devil children aren't hers, while she pretends to like read a magazine. Now, eventually, she'd had enough, and she'd barked across the terminal for them to get over here and sit down. Anyway, what stuck out to me was the posture of these girls. They had these rounded shoulders, or what clinicians may call kyphosis of the thoracic spine. They had this forward head posture, or the reversal of cervical lordosis. I mean, fuck, you guys weren't there. Let me just run with this, and let's just give these girls a healthy dose of scoliosis as well. And we'll complete the welcome pack with some lumbar lordosis and anterior pelvic tilt. And let's just even just say God really hated these girls and gave them these internally rotated legs with knocked knees and like a winged scapula, like just for good measure. Now, these girls are looking like really messed up. So I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with this kind of thing. You probably don't have the full welcome pack, but maybe you've been told that you've got any one of those things going on in your body. The question that I have is, when you see a person who looks like that, what are the first few things that pop into your mind? What are some of the first instinctive judgments you make about them, their status of pain, maybe their backgrounds, maybe their lifestyle? I mean, let's say that it wasn't an 8 or 9-year-old girl, but it was your typical gym bro. Okay, you probably all know the gym bro. He's the guy who walks in cold to the gym, slaps on a 45 or a 20 kilo plate onto each side of the bar and starts doing his bench press. Then he gets up, he does his victory lap while he puts on another plate, jumps in and does more of these guys. Then he puts on another plate and he does even more of these guys, shorter range now at this point. And then he sits up off the bench and starts doing like these guys, like, 307 people in this live right now. Fuck, you guys are good fucking people. You guys are good people. Thank you all so much. Anyway, the guy's like rolling his arm around, like doing these guys. Now, you guys all know what this gym bro looks like structurally. And I guess that you guys all have a pretty good idea as to what's going on, right? Like, he's done too many chest days, too much bench, not enough back. Too much pressing, not enough pulling. But what if it wasn't the gym bro, but it was your plain Jane, your average Pam, your untrained desk worker with her hunched back and the muscle tone of al dente linguine. And you start to think, she's like that because she's always sitting down and she needs to sit up straight when she's clocking in her 8 hours behind the screen. Maybe she needs to switch to a more ergonomic chair, or even sit maybe on a fitball instead, because that's functional, right? Now, what if it's a sports player? Something like tennis. I mean, have you ever seen a guy like Rafael Nadal and his extreme imbalances side to side? You can immediately tell which hand is a dominant hand, which hand he serves with, which hand he does his forehands with, which hand he does most of his everyday activities with. It's pretty interesting. Like, the Australian tennis champ, Rod Laver, he didn't just have bigger muscles. His actual wrist was measured at around an inch thicker on his dominant arm than his non-dominant arm. So the actual joint was thicker and altered. Now, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't born like that and then realized that he was blessed to play his forehands on his left hand and became the tennis great that he was because of this imbalanced deformity. So in these cases, it's pretty easy to make some judgments about what these people have been doing or not doing in their life, in their training, or with their sport. So the thing that we want to start asking is, if we go back to our 8-year-old girls in the airport, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they haven't been doing too many chest days in the gym. So what gives? Like, these are the kinds of questions that keep me up at night. Like, maybe I should be worrying more about pressing issues like climate change or artificial intelligence and the destruction of our ecosystem. But, like, here I am thinking about an 8-year-old girl's obvious obsession with fucking chest Mondays, bro. But I'm sure I'm not alone in this. Like, maybe you haven't pondered on it to the length that I have, but I'm sure you've seen many people just like this. Maybe at a glance, you thought to yourself, oh yeah, it's her posture. Too many video games, too much sitting, too much iPad, too much texting, too much reading, too much being on that incredible app called Ganbaru Method, 7-day free trial. I mean, you guys are already in here, so I shouldn't offer you that, but whatever, 7-day free trial, swipe up link, anywhere, whatever it may be. But the question I ask is that really all it is? And this is what has gotten me down this really interesting path. Because you see a girl like that, 8-year-old girl, and all you want to do is get up behind them and like just sort of like snap them back into position. Because I mean, like I've got a pretty fair bit of confidence in the pliability of the human form at that age. And I'm a pretty strong person. I'm almost certain that a well-placed knee and like this swift motion can just like snap her back into position. And you almost have to fight back the urge telling these girls how fucked up they are, how broken they are because of their posture, and how much pain they must be in, and how much of a lost cause they are in their ability to ever reach their true performance potential and get a boyfriend or a girlfriend and like truly be happy in life, right? All because these girls, these 8-year-old girls, trained chest one too many times and didn't appropriately balance it out with an adequate ratio of pulling work. But as you can probably guess, it's overlooking a pretty important fact. She's fucking 8 years old. I'm pretty damn sure she hasn't done too many chest days. So how the hell does this happen to someone of that age? See, the thing is now, I may be wrong because I couldn't exactly approach these girls and perform a full biomechanical assessment with them in the middle of the airport, but they didn't seem to have any issues or complaints. They looked happy and robust, plastic and pliable like an 8 or 9-year-old girl should be. So what is it about their structure that had them pulled into that position? And is it really wrong or bad for them like to be like that? And it's when we start exploring that question, we start to see probably the biggest mistake that I encounter and the most common issue that people come to me with on a daily basis. They say, hey, coach, I have this issue here. I'm broken. My left lat, it's bigger than my right. My right butt cheek is a little bit flatter than my left. My foot, it sits a little forwards and turns out more when I squat. And my right testicle sits a little bit lower than the left. Like, you got to help me, bro. You got to help me. Come look at it. Like, it probably sounds a bit funny, but I get these questions over and over and over again. Now, first of all, we need to start thinking more about all of these imbalances and ask the question of, what's at the root of all of this? Let's say it's a bigger right arm or a dominant arm, yeah? You could very easily say, oh, it's your dominant arm, so it's getting more activation and stimulation in everyday life. And it's growing as a response, yeah? Like, it's completely plausible, it's logical, and it makes sense. Maybe it's your flat left foot relative to your right, which causes your left knee to cave in, which creates more internal rotation on that left leg, less external rotation and glute activation on that same side, which then causes you to dump more into that left lat and erector, which feeds a tightness and stability through that shoulder. I think it might have been actually that shoulder or that neck, or I don't remember. But whatever compelling story may be thrown your way through this lens, it fits. And it also gives us a very, very clear way to train. It's like, we need to start balancing things out a bit more, some more like single-sided unilateral training to correct these imbalances, right? But firstly, we need to be clear on our expectations. Can we ever really fix this imbalance? I mean, what's really causing it? It's life. Like, it's the hand you use to open a door. It's stepping on the gas pedal in the car. It's the hand you carry your handbag with, or the hand and the side that you lean towards when you wipe your ass. But it's even more than that. I actually don't know if you guys can even see this because the exposure might be off, but chances are you've probably seen this post on my Instagram or Twitter somewhere. It's not important. What really is important is asking the question of, how many hearts do you have? And where does that sit in the body? Like, is it here or is it off to the side? Like, what about your lungs? Are they symmetrical? You have one stomach on one side, and it's about this big or so around here. And then you have your liver, which is on the other side, which is about like this big. And then you have the winding and the coiling of your intestines. And you also have your diaphragm, which is a muscle. It's this asymmetrical, misshapen dome that sits right in the center along your ribs. And that too is completely like off kilter and asymmetrical. So if the organs within our body are asymmetrical, and even some of the muscles are asymmetrical, it's completely plausible to think that our structure is going to be somewhat asymmetrical to accommodate for this, and that our nervous system, which rules all, will create these imbalances in our movement to support everyday life. So how much do you really think we can impact on a lot of these imbalances? And are they really that big of an issue? Probably not. So the real big question is, when do I start worrying? I start worrying when it hurts, when you experience pain, when it affects performance, not just in the gym, but with energy and overall quality of life. When it affects your subconscious desire to move, when it has you putting up these subconscious walls and creating a sedentary lifestyle for yourself. Not necessarily because of pain, but because of learned helplessness. Now, what I mean by learned helplessness is we can probably understand something like an injury, like you roll your ankle and it causes immobility and pain and less movement and a sedentary lifestyle. But what if somebody simply didn't move as much because they were worried that the movement they were doing was incorrect and that it was an issue? It's quite interesting, and it is well supported in the literature. For example, if you have knee pain and I was to take you out to a staircase and ask you to take a guess at how many stairs there are, we're not even going to climb up these stairs. If you have knee pain, you are more likely to say there is a much greater number of stairs and associate a higher degree of effort with climbing them than if you didn't. Your body is already putting up these walls to protect you from the potential threat to your vulnerable knee in this case. Like, I can't even begin to tell you the number of people who have come to me who have this genuine fear around not just exercise and gym training, but everyday movement in general life, because they're worried they're going to slip a disc or pinch their nerve. And this is a huge, huge, huge area that needs to be explored further. Because even if you're not a trainer or industry professional, as a human being, we need to understand what's going on a deeper level. Because the fact is, you're not as fragile, delicate, fucked up, or broken as this industry would like you to believe. That's probably the most important thing I've learned in my time and continually try to hammer home with all the content that I put out. We can all understand this to some kind of degree, because we've all seen those gym fuckery videos where you see a guy cat backing a deadlift, round back, humping the barbell with this one-way ticket to Snap City. But somehow he gets away with it. You can literally see his vertebral discs ejecting from his spine, yet he manages to get through that lift and walk away completely fine. So what's really going on here across the board? What unifies all these cases? The Snap City deadlifter, the 8-year-old girls, the learned helplessness, all the gym fuckery. What do all of these things share in common? It's perception, and what occurs right up here in the master control center. You see, the big question we have to be asking is, what governs all of our behavior? How do we learn what is correct, what is ideal, what is safe, and what is unsafe? We learn all of this, our brain learns all of this through observation. It's how your brain keeps you alive. It's not there just to say, do this, do that. It's there to continually assess the environment, to take in different sensory inputs, and to project outwardly what you do through your movement, through your posture, and through your actions to help you survive and to be as economical and as efficient as possible. We kind of understand this in many different contexts. Say you're at a dinner party and Karen is 15 minutes deep into her riveting story about how she asked to speak to the manager at the local Starbucks because they spelled her name wrong on the cup of her non-fat, iced skinny mocha with light ice and whipped cream and a light chocolate drizzle. She's like, excuse me, it's actually Karen with a Y, not an E. Do I look like an E, Karen, to you? You know what? Don't talk back to me with that fucking apology, Timothy. I'm just gonna have a word with your manager. So you've sort of obviously tuned out at this point. But then all of a sudden, there's this eruption of laughter around the table, and you think to yourself, damn, did I just miss the joke? Was it racist? Was it offensive against women? I don't know, but everybody else is laughing, so I better go along with it. So fucking Karen with a Y here doesn't ask to speak to my manager about this shit. So you laugh along, he's like, ha ha ha, yeah, good on you, Karen. I bet you fucking traumatized that kid for life. Well done. You do that just to fit in. But it's what we do. That's why there are laugh tracks in sitcoms, to help you know exactly when to laugh. And there is actually some research to suggest that laugh tracks make it funnier than if they weren't there in the first place. Your brain hears the cue of other people laughing and decides that it's time to laugh and it must be funny. Your brain assesses the environment and decides on the most appropriate response. And if we were to look at this through ancestral times, caveman days, it probably made a whole lot of sense from a survival perspective because we're tribal creatures. And the person who doesn't conform and work alongside everybody else, they're weird and different. And they probably got killed off a long time ago as they were a threat to the survival of the greater tribal community. As humans, we want to fit in. Our brain is wired in that way to help us fit in. It happens with everything. So let's have a little bit of a look at how it occurs with regards to visual perception. So this here is a little bit about how we sort of understand vision to occur. Light bounces off, so we've got like a little sunflower here. Light comes in, bounces off this object, and it enters into your eyeball. It actually gets flipped upside down here, and then it gets transduced, which is a very fancy way to say transformed, into an electrical signal that gets projected into the brain, back into the visual cortex at the back of your brain, and then vision occurs, and then you see the sunflower. So that is how you're seeing me right now. So that makes some kind of sense, but it's actually incomplete and somewhat incorrect, which sucks for any of you who are currently taking notes and just write that down. So take a look at 330 people in this live. 340 people in this live. Take a look at this. Chance that you must have seen this before. We have a square A and square B. So my question to you guys, I actually want to see what you guys put in here in the comment box, is which square is darker? Is square A darker or is square B darker? There is a correct answer to this. There is a correct answer. So pop it in and just let me know what you guys say. So some of you guys might be trying to outsmart this and say, oh no, like B is the same, it's the same color as A, or B is darker, right? So B is darker, you might say, or A is darker. Which is which? Both the same shade. If you've seen this before, you know that they're both the same shade. But you should see this B here. This should be lighter than this. If you don't see them as this being lighter than this, I'd probably want to get your vision checked or check your visual cortex for any brain lesions, because that's not correct. You should definitely see this one as lighter than this one. But of course, you know where I'm sort of going with this. You know where I'm going. If I was to draw a line joining these two together with no Photoshop tricks, let me show you again. Before, after. No Photoshop tricks. We have the exact same colored square. So what's happening? What's happening here? It's visual perception. So the exact same thing happened. Light bounced off this image. It entered into your eyeball, entered into your visual cortex, exactly the same as before. But then, before vision occurred, before you perceived vision, a lot of magic happened before you perceived anything. Now that lot of magic is the integration of every other brain region. Your prefrontal cortex, your posterior parietal lobe, your hippocampus. Every other brain region jumps on board and tells you about the context. It tells you that based on the fact that we have an object here and an apparent light source coming in from that side, and because of the checkerboard, there must be a lighter shade here in the B square as opposed to the A square. So the brain is filling in these gaps for you all the time. The brain is predictive and efficient. If it was trying to analyze every single detail all the time, it would get absolutely nothing done. So it has these little quick, dirty shortcuts to assist in perception. Now that's vision. The exact same thing happens with every single other process that involves the brain, i.e. everything. It's not just about like input comes in, output goes out. It's about all the magic that happens in between in the brain. How your brain decides what is perceived and the best outward projection for the rest of the body. And that is where this stuff gets really powerful and interesting. It helps us understand a lot of what is going on with our training, our imbalances, our posture, our pain, and it might even make you realize that a lot of what we might be doing with our training or mobility or therapy work is a complete waste of time because we're chasing after the wrong thing. We're trying to work on all the hardware here without looking at the software, the brain, because that is what's going to dictate everything in the body. How well your brain has some kind of perceptual map on what is happening on a sensory level is going to determine how everything else happens, the rest of your body. So the way that anything works is you have a sensory input of some sort. It goes into your brain, and your brain then decides how you're meant to deal with whatever is going on and what the best reaction is. It learns over time to become more efficient. So it doesn't have to take as many steps of this like magic in between to reach a decision on the projections it sends to the rest of the body, especially when something like pain is involved to help to protect you in response to some kind of a perceived threat. So let's talk about this a little bit more in the lens of pain. It's been historically accepted that pain is a direct result of tissue damage of some sort. It's like you're training in the gym and you pull your shoulder funny, you tear something up in here, and now you experience pain. Over time, it heals hopefully, and the pain should go away. It makes a lot of sense, right? Like you bent over and lifted too much in the deadlift, because it's a dangerous exercise, of course, and you slip the disc out of your spine, and now you experience pain because it's pinching on a nerve. Like you got shot in the knee, your patella is now blown to smithereens, and there's damage to that area. It makes sense that you experience pain there. But not always. You see, when you start to look into both an anecdotal, like your own evidence, and into all of the research on pain, we come across a lot of very, very, very interesting things. See, the reality is that between 70 to 90% of amputees still feel sensation. But typically it's the pain in that missing limb. But the limb is fucking gone. So what's going on at that point? You shouldn't be able to feel anything in something that isn't there. You may have heard of something called the rubber hand illusion, which was pioneered by Dr. Lorimer Moseley, who's one of the leading authorities on pain. So what we have here is, this is a woman, that's her hand, this is her other hand over here, and she can't see her actual hand. And this here is a rubber hand that she can visually see. So what this creep is doing is this creep is stroking her actual hand whilst also stroking the rubber hand at the exact same time. And after maybe about 5 minutes, maybe 10 strokes, I can't remember how long it was, you start feeling, this woman starts feeling this hand as hers, to the point where when this weirdo here gets a knife and stabs the rubber hand, the woman will actually feel pain. She'll experience a sharp shooting pain and a lot of shock as a result of it. Now, these aren't just simple like party tricks, because there are many other similar research studies that have been performed again and again and again, and replicated again and again, to highlight the role that the brain plays in our perception of threat and the very real pain that we experience as a result of whether or not your brain senses a real danger or not. So whether you're actually experiencing real physical danger or tissue damage isn't as important as your brain's perception of the experience. It's fascinating stuff. And like on the other hand, if we all went and looked at some sort of like MRI scan on our own bodies, chances are the vast majority of us will come back with some sort of issue. Torn this, degraded that, bulging this, burning that, and by all accounts on paper, we should be experiencing pain. But you'd probably have no symptoms whatsoever. So what gives? Like let's say you're currently experiencing lower back pain. Is it really from your technique, your posture, and how you're programming your training? I'm absolutely certain that we should be looking at those things, but we also need to be looking into the other factors that could be playing into this on a perceptual level. Because very often I find that people actually present with no discernible issue whatsoever, particularly in regards to lower back pain, yet they find themselves in excruciating chronic lower back pain on a daily basis. So what is equally as important as biomechanics, posture, and strength training for pain management? It's the psychological side. It's the psychological side. So like, let's say that you have lower back pain and you go get an MRI or scan done, you take it in to see a physiotherapist for a consult, And they read it and they're like, you have a herniated disc. You have a disc bulge. Let me show you here on my spinal model as to what is going on right now. Here is your spine, and here's what happened to it. And the disc exploded, and this is why you're in chronic pain. Like, who's actually had that happen? Tell me. Tell me. Who's actually experienced that? Where you're told you got this bulging disc and you've shown this, and you think to yourself, oh my fucking God, I'm going to die unless I do one of these core bracing drills and never bend forwards again for the rest of my life, as that puts me into this dangerous flex spine position. Like, what's just happened? You've just taken that person's perception of danger and threat and taken it sky high. Now they have this idea in their head that their disc has slipped out of their spine and that they are so fragile, they need to always be safe and protected. And if they don't do all these special core bracing drills, their spine will disassemble and spontaneously burst into flames. Now, when they go to tie their shoelaces, they have to do it very slowly and with the perfect brace in case they slip a disc away from their spine. That is the reality of what I deal with from so many people who come to me in pain. Is that they've learned about this pain and they reinforce it every single day through their guarded behavior and continually being overprotective all the time. And in most cases, it extends beyond the reasonable length of time it should take for something like that to heal. So if someone is so cautious of even bending over to tie their shoelaces, how confident are they going to be of successfully training in the gym? And how much of a detriment is that going to be to their long-term health, to no longer be comfortable with training or with any movement, like walking, because now everything is seen as dangerous. This is a huge deal from a movement perspective, because what happens if your body starts seeing movement, all movement, as inherently dangerous? I'm sure that many of you have gone through some sort of dedicated period of time where you were following a diet and dropped some body fat. And you'll be familiar with what comes along with that in terms of feelings of fatigue, of low energy levels, and overall moodiness. I mean, if you've ever been to that point of absolute shreddedness, where you're dick skin lean all over your body, and where you can see the bones of your feet through the soles of your feet, you know just how painful it is to exist at that point, and how much effort it takes to even just get up off the couch and to go to the bathroom, to the point where you find yourself sitting there on the couch, seriously contemplating whether or not it's worth getting up or whether or not you should just shit your pants right there on the couch instead of getting up and walking the 10 steps to the bathroom. You see, it's those little things that your brain does to tell you to conserve resources and to stop moving. Because if you keep moving, you're going to waste away because of a lack of resources. And you're going to die because I perceive danger from your low levels of body fats and not enough nutrients coming in. Now, what do you think is going to happen when your brain perceives everyday movements as dangerous? Because we have this imbalance from left to right. Because your left foot is more turned out than the right, or because of a past injury or tweak, and then you're now left vulnerable and fragile. It's going to say, let's stop moving in general. Let's bring you to this point where even getting out of bed is a chore, and let's do everything we can to stop you from moving. And how did we stop you from moving way back when you had an actual injury? Oh, like we gave you pain. So let's do that again. Or in the case of chronic pain, long after the injury has healed on a tissue level, let's keep you in a heightened state of pain. You see, pain is a very, very, very good signal to tell your body to change what it's currently doing because it senses danger. Maybe because of an imbalance, maybe because of incorrect technique or tissue damage, but it could be from anything else as well. So the question we now have to ask is, how should we be looking at pain? We need to start by understanding that tissue trauma, tissue damage, and pain, they do have a relationship, but it's a variable relationship. We have to understand as well that pain is an emergent property. Pain is an emergent property of the brain. It serves to protect the body, as it is related to changing behavior for our survival, and our brain is very, very good at learning quickly and creating very, very strong neural networks to project pain to our body to get us to move a certain way or to ultimately not move at all. So this is just as important to me as looking at somebody from a biomechanical perspective and doing my assessments on them. I care about this stuff just as much, if not more, as it can have a huge impact. And it is something that is so overlooked, especially in how we communicate and the level of understanding that we have surrounding this topic on pain. So it's not to say that I don't care about technique or exercise selection or imbalances or biomechanics in general. I mean, it all has a very, very, very important place in this model of pain. But it is only one part of it. And it is being overblown at the expense of everything else, to the point where these very, very real psychological factors, such as the language we use and the way it influences our perception of danger, feeds into pain. So now we need to ask the question of, yes, I'm in pain. What now? What do I do? What should we be doing if we're currently experiencing pain? Because again, like how many of you guys are in pain? Of you, 308 beautiful people. I think this is actually a beautiful time to say, guys, again, thank you so much for being here. Like, I know I said it like 7 times already, but this is just, it means the absolute world to me that you guys all want to be here, nerding out on this stuff with me. Look, the biggest thank you you guys can ever give me is a screenshot and a share on your social medias. Tell your friends, tell your family, and honestly, share this content around as well, because I am so passionate about this topic, getting legs under it and taking off and helping more people who are in chronic pain. Because I know many of you right here are in pain. So what do I look at? I would definitely be looking at addressing any biomechanical or tissue-related concerns. I'll be doing some more detailed series on different body parts in the future on this, but a quick takeaway for you with regards to biomechanics is the concept of tissue tolerance. So I'm going to make up some statistic now and just say that 99% of tissue damage, like tendonitis, are all because of overuse and because you have exceeded the recovery abilities of that particular tendon. And like the tendons around your elbow or your knee. So we have to look at what exercises are we doing too much of that are adding this extra strain, and what can I taper back on in terms of volume to reduce the strain, or can I substitute better exercises that induce less strain, or can I look at other variables such as nutrition and recovery techniques to support my recoverability as a whole? It might be as simple as switching from barbell curls to dumbbell curls, which allow for more freedom at the wrist and create a lot less jamming force to occur at the elbow joint from forcing them into an unnatural plane of motion on a barbell. One of the most common ones that I come across, especially in women, is that they spend far too long in a calorie deficit, which gets in the way of their ability to be able to feed their body sufficient nutrients over time to recover from injuries and the normal degradation and wear and tear that occurs in these tissues over time. But what else should we be looking at? Whenever we're experiencing pain, whether it's chronic or acute, we need to understand that it's there as a signal, as a protective mechanism. It doesn't always relate to direct tissue damage, and a lot of the stories we've told ourselves over time can actually make that pain a lot worse than it really is on a perceptual level. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist at all, but it means that for your brain, for some reason, your brain is acting overprotective and overvigilant. And we want to come back to why that may be and look to retrain that. The brain learned to give you this hypervigilant pain response to protect you. That means that learning can get you out of pain as well. We want to focus to help retrain the brain by being as active as possible. Active. Be active, not passive. Move more. Active training exercises and movements, any type of movement that will suppress pain signals over time. Passive modalities like massage, dry needling, soft tissue work, all that kind of stuff doesn't really do a great deal outside of giving you short-term temporary relief and some kind of relaxation, maybe. Because unless the brain actually learns that it's safe to move and that there is no more threat to your survival, the pain will come straight back. In general, for those with chronic pain, the risk of inactivity is far greater than the risk of activity. So even if you are experiencing pain, I would still recommend trying to go through as much movement as you can handle. Don't push to a point where you induce more pain over time, but aiming to do a little bit more movement and a little bit more tomorrow that will progress over time will hopefully get you out of this cycle. And Finally, the last thing we've got to be with ourselves is patient and consistent. We need to be patient because just like learning any other new skill, like learning a new instrument, learning a new language, it takes time and it is a constantly developing process. You guys all probably know that I play guitar and I've done so for nearly 20 years. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stop learning more with the guitar over time, and that every single day isn't about me practicing to hone my skills or to even just maintain my skills. The same thing applies to training in and out of the gym, and the same thing applies to when we're dealing with pain. So regardless of what you're suffering with, keep that in mind. This is a continual process. It's a continual process of learning on how to better move your body, on taking into consideration all the different biomechanical considerations, but also understanding that it's all about this stuff up in here, this goopy brain stuff. It is what drives all of your sensations, all of your actions, all of your behaviors. And we need to take as much care as we can to be fostering a healthy relationship with movement, with training, and also pain. So I'm pretty sure, there's a button. That's all I got to say, guys. That's all I have to say. So if you guys have any specific questions at all, let's put that's a nice slide, isn't it? That's a great slide for a screenshot, isn't it? That's a fantastic slide for a screenshot. If you guys have any questions, we're going to be right in here right now. And let me just start scrolling through. And we're going to go through this. Elisa, 5151, I know that you deal with a lot of pain. You messaged me many times in the past about a lot of lower back pain that you're having, low back spasms. Hopefully you found this to be helpful. I really, really do hope that you guys have found everything I've shown you guys and talked about in this lecture series here to be beneficial and helpful for you and your current condition, or your friends, your family, your clients. Please do share it around, not for my benefits, but for other people's benefits. Okay, all of this work, it's been going on for the last couple of decades, where Dr. Lyra Mosley, he's an Australian guy, I represent him, he's pioneered most of this work. And when I started coming across it, I started to realize all the mistakes that I was making with how I was dealing with clients and students, and it's revolutionized so much of what I do, and it's helped so many people long term. So please do make sure you share it around. What else we got in here? I know we've never gotten to 300 people on a live before, but we got 300 people on a fucking, right, I'm going to screenshot this right now. Bang. Look at that. Bang. Screenshotted. I'm doing it right now. You guys can do it too. You guys can do it too. Just bang. Screenshot. Just like that. Just like that. Because that's fucking exciting. To me anyway. Let me look what else is going on in here. You guys have been quiet today. Katrina. When I got told I had a disc protrusion, I went into the gym that afternoon because I was stressed and that's how I relaxed. I hardly have any issues now. Best thing I ever did was to be aware and not focus on. Same deal as me. So many years ago, I was deadlifting and I tweaked my back pretty fucking horrendously. Like I couldn't actually walk. I had to crawl, I had to drag myself out of the gym into my car and somehow drive home. It was fucked up. The best thing that I did was that I started moving and I tried to get back into the gym within a day, within 24 hours, because the pain would subside. The pain was there as a protective mechanism. Chances are, I didn't really do any damage to my back, but your brain sensed danger. It's like, oh, I better tell you, don't fucking do that anymore, Eugene, just in case. Your body will probably give you the pain signal well before there is actually going to be any tissue trauma occurring in that area. So, Warrior Mum, I am so glad this has opened your eyes and opened your mind to pain and understanding it better. How do I train, or how do you train your brain to push the pain barrier in your head? So we've got to define what pain barrier is. Okay, like I don't want people, like this is where the whole 1 to 10 scale of pain is probably a good benchmark. I don't ever want you forcing your body when it's really fucking painful. I have had some chronic pain clients who are in just this absolute chronic pain state where it's like a 10 out of 10 daily, and that's fucked up. And at that point, it is honestly very, very, very challenging. And that is where with these chronic pain people, it's really important to be dealing with it up here. And honestly, therapy is so, so important there. having a professional, having a coach to talk you through this and to be there for accountability and for guidance is so, so, so important. And that's where there are pain specialists out there who I would recommend going to find. There are many places you can seek more understanding and more help on this. I'm going to put, when this thing goes live in the website on the app as the replay, I'm going to put in show notes. I'm also going to be putting in like timestamps. I'll also put in a few reference manuals for you guys to read further about all of these topics and some of the papers that I'm referencing throughout this speech as well to help you guys understand more and more and more about this stuff. So yes, Aaron Fitzgerald, I do believe that the initial pain response is more so as a safety mechanism before the issue gets severe. Most of the time, I do believe that. How do you go about explaining the importance of perception in a sensitive way to clients who have began to identify with their pain? Again, that's a challenging thing. That's a very, very challenging thing. And that's where, honestly, a presentation like this, a conversation like this is so valuable. To tell the clients those kinds of things, telling them about these stories, telling them about your anecdotes, showing them these kinds of research articles. And then, of course, when you need to, refer onwards, refer them out to a pain specialist. And pain specialists are actually trained to help use the right language to help these people. But that is why I want to see a big shift in the world of rehabilitation, of coaching, of physiotherapy, because there are so many people out there in that world, in this authoritative position as physios, as osteos, as chiros, as doctors, as trainers, who are telling us that this is bad, that this is wrong, that this is dangerous, that you're going to die, and that your pain is caused by weakness. Your pain is caused by your lack of core strength. Your pain is caused by your postural biomechanical issue. And that's simply not true. You will find that those people who have very much a vested interest in selling you a product or a service that is all about those kinds of modalities of biomechanics, of training, of core work, whatever it may be, they're probably going to be the ones who are going to have their heels dug in the ground and are going to resist and not want to change their tune. But as a whole, the population deserves better because the level of knowledge has grown. Okay, understanding beyond biomechanics and going more into the perceptual, psychological, brain side of this, that's where we're currently at. And that's what needs to be put forward more into the world. That's why I do this lecturing. Let's say I have knots in my upper back, says Nathaniel Taylor. Does that mean that I'm feeling this pain due to lack of body awareness or posture, or is it poor mechanics? We're still not sure exactly where knots really come from. It seems to be a spasm in the muscle, but it could also be because of these are typical areas, because they tend to be very much the same areas of people where we go through a lot of overuse. So I would say that a lot of it is probably due to lack of movement of that tissue through its full articular range. So traps and rhomboids. Who's got trap and rhomboid knots all up in this area? Very, very, very common. And I also find those are the biggest areas that people don't have a clue on how to train. Thankfully, that is why I, cheeky plug, coming right up, have got the rhomboid and trap module, the upper back modules in Ganbaru Method Topic of the Month. Learn how to train and move them better, learn how to move your shoulders better, and you'll start to find a lot of those knots, those pains, they actually will start going away. Because you're moving more. You're improving your brain's perception of what's happening in that area. There's less danger associated with that area. So, next question. What do I think about the Shakti mat? The Shakti mat, if you don't know what it is, Google it after this. I think it can provide a lot of helpful sensory input to a tactile stimulation to the muscles in your body. Will that help with pain? It might. And that's the mechanism I think it would work on to help to reduce pain and to promote relaxation to people. Because your brain has got a better sensory map on all the proprioceptors within your body. So if it helps you, definitely use it. If you find massage helps you, definitely use it. If you find foam rolling helps you, definitely use it. What is a trigger point? I'm not really sure. Not really sure. How would I start somebody? How could somebody start their own rehab routine if they have a tear on their tendon? First of all, they've got to make sure that they're not continually bashing up the tendon. So we'll go more into that down the road with some more of these lives. So I won't leave you hanging with that, Miss Ibanez. Ibanez. Fantastic name, Candela Ibanez. What is that? Is it like Portuguese, Spanish or something? But you want to start, in terms of exercises, isometric first. So a lot of the research is looking into long duration isometrics, and then eccentric loading, and finally concentric loading after that. So I will do more follow-up series on tendon training specifically that will come into Ganbaru method, but to give you some juice to get you flowing, look into that. Isometric first, then eccentric, then concentric loading. All right, guys, that's the hour done. I've got to say one more humongous thank you to every single one of you guys for attending. It does mean so much to me that you guys would all show up, give me a whole hour of your time to be attentive, to be asking all of these questions, and to be engaging with this content. I really do hope you found this to be helpful, useful, beneficial, and please do share it around because I want this content going out there. Not from me. You can put it into your own words. Fucking just steal this shit and make it your own. I don't care. Get this content out there more to start helping people more, to help them with their pain, help them with their posture. So nobody keeps asking me, Coach, my rounded shoulders, what should I do? Probably not much more than just move more. Anyway, guys, you guys all have a fantastic evening. Go have a fantastic day, afternoon, Friday, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much. I am going to see you all next time. How do we turn this off? I don't know. So we're just going to hang out. Let's put some music on. Hey, Google, play music. Wait for it.